There's a poverty that's not in our pockets, but in the flesh of our souls, and no one notices it. Have you ever felt like you carry an emptiness that no one sees, as if there's a huge hole inside you, but when people look at you, they only see someone normal, going about their life? It's like that feeling of being in a room full of people, yet still feeling completely alone. Everyone has felt this at some point, even those who seem to have everything. It's this invisible poverty we're going to talk about today, the same one that Kafka, one of the world's greatest writers, revealed in his incredible stories. Kafka wrote about characters crushed by the world, who, even in the deepest misery, maintained a semblance of normalcy. This is also true of everyday life. Many live broken inside, but carry on as if they lacked nothing. This is where I ask, subscribe to the channel and leave a like, because what you're about to hear may be exactly what you haven't yet been able to name within yourself. You know that Kafka story where the character wakes up transformed into a giant insect? Well, that story is called The Metamorphosis. In it, Gregor Samsa turns into an insect, but still tries to act as if he can lead his normal life. He worries about being late for work even though his body is completely transformed. It seems absurd, doesn't it? But how often do we do this? We feel immense sadness, a seemingly endless tiredness, a feeling that nothing makes sense, and yet we say, "I'm fine," when someone asks how we are. Kafka's genius was to show this strangeness we experience every day without realizing it, like normal people who carry invisible monsters inside them, yet continue to smile and shop at the supermarket. If this resonates with you, if you've ever felt this way, this content will touch something very deep within you. There are people who, even in the face of scarcity, carry a quiet dignity. They don't show their material or emotional emptiness because they've learned to hide their ruins like those who hide the scars of war. Have you ever noticed that person who never complains, who even when things are tough, keeps walking with their head held high? This isn't just strength, it's also a shield, a way of telling the world, "I'm not afraid of you." It's like that neighbor who always looks well-groomed, even though you know there's barely any food in her fridge, or that classmate who smiles all the time, but you have no idea about the fights he overheard last night. This ability to appear whole when broken is like a sad superpower. People learn from an early age that showing weakness can be dangerous. So they develop this perfect mask, this way of walking through the world as if nothing hurts. Kafka understood this deeply. His characters are masters at feigning normalcy while the absurd happens to them. And the most impressive thing? These people do it so well that sometimes even they believe they're fine. Like still water that appears calm on the surface but hides powerful whirlpools deep within. But this mask is costly. The world doesn't see the silent hunger, doesn't notice the exhausted heart, and so these people pass by invisible, as if their pain weren't real. I want you to write in the comments what this awakens in you, if you've ever felt this need to appear whole while inside you were falling apart. Imagine carrying a huge weight every day, but no one offers help because you've learned to smile while carrying it. That's the price of the perfect mask, loneliness. When you become too good at hiding your pain, the world thinks you don't need help. And what's more, this mask grows heavier and heavier over time. It's like you have to play a role all day, every day. It's tiring, it's soul-weary. Often, the person who seems strongest in the room is the very one who's about to break completely. Kafka showed in his stories how this pressure to appear normal can transform a person from within. How we can become strangers to ourselves through so much pretending. How we can lose ourselves in this game of appearances. And saddest of all, how we can become sick with loneliness even when surrounded by people who admire us for our supposed strength. Imagine a man who walks to work every day with neatly ironed clothes, but an empty stomach. He smiles, he greets, but his home is plunged into the silence of absence. Kafka wrote of these beings, who transform into insects or shadows, but who continue to fulfill their function in the face of a society that ignores them. Let's call this man Carlos. Carlos wakes up at 5 in the morning every day. He takes a cold shower because the electric shower head broke months ago, and there's no money to fix it. He carefully irons his only good shirt. He puts on the same cheap perfume he's been using for years. He combs his hair with water to disguise the gray hairs that are increasingly appearing. He leaves the house without drinking coffee, but with a smile on his face. On the bus, Carlos reads an old book he already knows by heart. Not because he loves the story so much, but because it's been a while since he's been able to buy new ones. When he arrives at work, he greets everyone enthusiastically. "Good morning. How was your weekend?" People like Carlos. They think he's optimistic and positive. No one would guess he skipped lunch yesterday. When his colleagues plan to go out after work, Carlos always has an excuse. "I can't make it today. I have an appointment." The appointment is not to spend the little money he has. At home, in the silence of his small apartment, Carlos finally takes off his mask. He sits on the old sofa and allows the tiredness to show on his face. This is the real Carlos, the one no one knows. This man could easily be a character straight out of a Kafka novel. An ordinary man, seemingly normal, but who lives a completely different reality inside than the one he portrays to the world. This happens because real poverty isn't just a lack of money, but a lack of recognition. Human beings can't bear being reduced to their misery, so they don masks to survive. Material poverty blends with existential poverty, and the individual becomes a well-dressed ghost. From a young age, we learn that our worth is tied to what we have or appear to have. It's not just about money, it's about appearing successful, happy, and fulfilled. It's as if there's a grand show happening all the time, and we're all on stage, trying not to mess up our parts. Psychology explains this in an interesting way. We fear rejection. It's one of the oldest and deepest fears we carry. In caveman times, being rejected by the group meant certain death. Today, even though it's not a matter of physical life or death, our brains still function as if it were. That's why we create this second skin, this presentable version of ourselves. Kafka understood this profoundly. In his stories, we see characters who have lost their true identity so much that they don't even realize when they transform into something else. Like in the Metamorphosis, where Gregor becomes a giant insect, but his primary concern is still being late for work. This mix between who we are and who we pretend to be creates a huge existential void, a hole that tries to be filled with appearances, with forced smiles, with carefully chosen clothes to hide the traces of truth. And here comes the shock. Society accepts the poor who present themselves clean and silent, but rejects those who cry out in hunger. Those who dress well, even when empty, are tolerated. Those who expose the truth are shunned, ridiculed, forgotten. If this resonates with you, leave the word mask in the comments, because that's exactly what we've all learned to wear. Have you noticed how differently we treat a homeless person who sits silently in a corner than a person who cries out loud for help? Our society prefers pain to be discreet, hunger to be silent, sadness to be masked. This is one of the greatest contradictions we live with. We want honesty, but we punish those who are too honest about their pain. We want authenticity, but we reject those who show their true wounds. It's as if there's a silent agreement. You may be suffering, but please suffer beautifully. Suffer without causing harm. Kafka demonstrated this brilliantly in his books. His characters are tolerated as long as they can keep up appearances. But when the truth comes out, when the insect appears, when the absurdity is revealed, they are immediately rejected, even by their own families. This is the great dilemma. We want to be accepted, but we fear that if we show ourselves as we truly are, with our faults, our pain, and our poverty, we will be abandoned. So we learn to smile while we bleed inside. We learn to say, "I'm fine," when we're falling apart. We learn to wear our masks as if they were our true faces. The biggest risk isn't having nothing, but believing you need to deny who you are to be accepted. In this process, your identity is diluted. You cease to exist as a subject and become merely a socially acceptable appearance. This is a silent danger that grows within us. First, you hide a small part of yourself, then another, and another, until one day, when you look in the mirror, you no longer recognize who's there. You've become your own mask. It's like the story of the frog in the pot of hot water. If you put a frog in boiling water, it jumps out immediately. But if it's put in cold water and slowly heated, it doesn't realize the danger until it's too late. This is what happens when we begin to deny who we are to please others. Kafka wrote about characters who wake up one day and realize they've become something else. An insect, a machine, a ghost. But the truth is, this transformation didn't happen overnight. It happened slowly, as they tried to fit into a world not made for them. The real danger isn't material poverty. It's losing your essence, your voice, your ability to say, "I'm hurting," when you're hurting. It's forgetting who you really are beneath all the layers you've put on to be accepted. But there is another path, learning to recognize this silent poverty, not as shame, but as a human experience. When you embrace your fragility, it can become awareness, and from this awareness comes a strength that no one can take away. Poverty may be invisible to others, but it can be transformed into inner clarity. Perhaps the first step is to recognize your mask. Notice the moments when you say, "I'm fine," when you're not. Recognize when you're smiling just to avoid disturbing others. Identify when you're hiding from yourself. This doesn't mean going around exposing all your pain to anyone. It's not about that. It's about being honest with yourself first. It's about stopping lying to the face in the mirror. It's about saying, at least to yourself, "Yes, I'm scared. Yes, I'm insecure. Yes, I feel small sometimes." This inner honesty creates a breathing space within you, a place where you can be who you are, without judgment. And from this place, from this small truth, something powerful can be born. Self-compassion, the ability to look at your own wounds with kindness. Kafka, in all his genius, perhaps shows us precisely this. The absurdity isn't in feeling fear, pain, or hunger. The absurdity lies in pretending these things don't exist. When we accept our humanity, with all its flaws and limitations, something surprising happens. We feel less alone. We realize that this struggle isn't just ours, it's everyone's. The real danger isn't being poor, it's never learning to name your poverty. In the comments, share how you feel about wearing your own masks, or what silences you've had to hide from the world. Don't forget to like, share the video, and watch the content on the card, because it can be a continuation of this reflection within you. When we name what we feel, we take away some of its power over us. It's like turning on a light in a dark room. The room remains the same, but now we can see where we're standing. We can see the path. Kafka wrote about people lost in absurd labyrinths, facing systems that made no sense, transforming themselves into strange creatures. But perhaps his greatest lesson is this: even in the absurd, even in transformation, even in the deepest poverty of the soul, there is still something genuinely yours that no one can take away. Your conscience, your ability to see the truth. If you've made it this far, perhaps you recognized a bit of yourself in these words. Maybe you remembered the times you smiled while crying inside, the times you said, "I'm fine," when you weren't, the masks you wear every day. Know that you are not alone on this journey, that naming your poverty, whether material, emotional, or existential, is the first step toward transforming it into something new. Not necessarily wealth, but awareness, authenticity, freedom, and perhaps that is the true wealth we seek, not having to pretend anymore.